Hello, welcome. So I should probably connect to my hotspot considering the Wi-Fi here has been horrible. 1 second. It might not even be recording at this point. I'm praying that I have an unlimited hotspot because, okay, connect to hotspot. Ever since I came back from America, my Wi-Fi that always worked perfectly just stopped working. I like live in an apartment that's amazing. I love it. Something's always wrong. Tonight was I'm in therapy, on the phone, and my girlfriend says that there's like water falling from the ceiling in her room. And then I go look in this kind of spa type area, like this little attachment to the apartment, and it's like there's this like furnace that has like this broken this like pipe that's like like water's like leaking out, and I have to like have a handyman come like at 9 o'clock at night. It's been a hectic day actually. Like for not leaving the apartment, hectic day, literally. But when you exercise and you run, at least for me, everything's all good. Now what's going on with? Hold on, this looks odd. I'm just looking at the aspect grid of your chart. I'm like, hold on. Okay. Well, like never seen like anything look like that. Not good or bad, just I'll show you. I'll share the screen. Like down here, it's like all red aspects. It's like very, very weird, but that's not very important parts. The important parts are up here. But yeah, anyways, I'll just continue as I kind of merge into this reading. Um, so that was that. Then I order some groceries because I don't know, short a few things. I was like, just do it, before. And I like it was literally like, if I order a lie, I tip the guy like extra because I knew it was like, a little bit more than the average. And he comes up like because I mean it wasn't that much. Like I've ordered like way more before, and no one's ever said anything to me or had a problem. I tipped him, you know, 12 lei, which is a lot more than you usually tip someone. Um, in dollars, it's only like $3, but it's 12 lei is like the buying power is probably more like I don't know, not an economist here, but like 7-ish. You can it's a good amount of money. Like it's probably like what he's getting paid per hour, right? Um, like close to it to carry a few things up 5 staircases. Anyways, I'm in my session, and like one of the reasons that I don't want to that I tip is because I don't want to fucking go leave like I don't want to like stop what I'm doing and have to go get the shit, like that's why I tip extra. And if he has to just go do 2 laps, he does 2 laps. But he did it all in one. But it was like literally him like screaming it like through the phone, like I'm not your fucking slave, like me and my girlfriend, like, and I'm like I'm telling her to like tell him that I'm working, I can't talk, which I was, and um he's just like super fucking like harassing and shit, like, and he even asked for extra money, and then I just went off on him, like I just like started screaming at him in Romanian, and then he shut up, basically just saying like, look, like, listen, I fucking tipped you 12 lei, like, ungrateful ass, like, it's like, you know, that's like, I didn't order that much shit, you know, and I had to like talk to the support and stuff, just like so unnecessary, like I had to like bring my baseball bat. It's like I like the guy was like a psycho, like I was like, I don't fucking know, like, like the stuff's at the door. And like when like he finally like brought it up, he just like threw all the shit. Like I heard it from up here, just like that big blah at the door, like he just like chucked all my groceries, which had like glass in it and stuff, like at the door. Or maybe he just threw one of the kitty litters. I don't know. The only two heavy things were like two like medium sized bag, pretty not even big sized bags of kitty litter. So yeah, it's always a good a good day when you have to open your door with a baseball bat, because you don't know if the dude's like crazy as hell and just like hiding and gonna like attack you or some shit. It was all good, and I don't know. I don't really get flustered in those situations. Like I stay pretty cool. Um, really don't want to have to ever use that bat, but there for a reason. And now it's like cool. This potentially crazy dude knows where I live, but whatever. That happens. Anyways, let me reset the timer because it was like a little monologue that doesn't really matter. But um, so here we are. Thank you for your patience with the reading and everything. So off the bat, we see the classic chart where I'm going to have to talk about placidus and whole sign because you have a 29-degree rising. So if you've had an astrology reading before, you'll notice that everything will pretty much everything will have shifted a house. So it might be a interesting interpretation, a different take. But what I want to start with is you know, this sun, like all this Virgo first house, right? Because in Placidus, your sun conjunct Uranus, your Mercury conjunct Pluto, all this stellium would be, in the 12th. In the whole sign, every planet of the same sign is in the same house. Now, um, like for example, your Jupiter would probably be in the 8th house, I'd imagine. Your moon would be in the 9th. Yeah. But the most important thing is about the Virgo stellium. And I want to kind of break it down from my point of view of how I see it in each. So, being a whole sign astrologer, having a first house sun with all, first house stellium in Virgo, um, is very good in the sense that the sun, shines very bright. You're born at 7:56 in August. So So right around, I mean, I guess in August the days are longer. So probably daylight already. And basically 12th house sun versus a first house sun. And just stellium in general. Well, the 12th house is the house of Pisces. It's very much about endings, karmic. It's very karmic. Um, you know, regardless of what system you use, Sun conjunct Uranus is going to make someone very, very, even if they're Virgo, have kind of like an Aquarius vibe to them. Very revolutionary, very unique. Um, and there's this real level of excitement and need for liberation, you could say. Now, it goes well with the Gemini moon, um, and the fact that we have that it's in Virgo adds a level of balance to it, and enables you to not get lost in what can be very very, very up and down type of energy. I was talking about this recently, or actually yesterday, about how a chart without aspects is just, what example did I give? I think I gave like Sun conjunct Neptune as my example, but yeah, overall, it just makes so change is a big theme in the life. Um, so it'll make one a lot more exciting than the typical Virgo. Um, Someone who is rebellious, um, and who, stands out from the crowd in lots of ways, right? I'm gonna I like to get my crystals. And where's my stone? Sacred stone. Yeah, so Zoom updated, and it used to be I like that it did this, but it used to be, oh, where's my 1 second? Yeah, I understand. So it used to be the case that whenever I would share the screen, um, it wouldn't show my face, which was kind of annoying. But now it does, which is good. It's good that my face is in the bottom, but sometimes I just like to do weird stuff. I don't know how else to say it. Like meditate and like walk around and just get into my zone. And sometimes I just don't want to be seen. And sometimes I do. You'll see I'll pop in and out based on how I'm feeling. But yeah, overall, you know, it's gonna make you a lot less Virgo, uh, and have a real energy of kind of just yeah, standing out and the need for individualism. So what can happen is that it can also bring anxiety and feeling misunderstood. A lot of times also there's like it creates someone who goes through lots of like changes early in life, whether it's like parents getting divorced, which is very probable because you have sun square moon and moving around a lot, and just some kind of like potentially like instability with the father, which I see that also with the sun being opposite Saturn. So going back to, well, actually, I'll keep talking about this a little bit. The person who has this, has to watch out for like taking too big of risks, and they have to like overall, like it makes one very, very intuitive. Like flashes of intuition can just come to you. That's Uranus. It's like this. You can see how it has these like almost satellite like ears. So, I think it's nice that you're a Virgo, because Virgo can be a very, very spiritual sign. Um, and when it's able to, when someone who has a Uranus Aquarius energy in their chart is able to kind of like, or at least a Uranus conjunct moon or sun, can really just like chill out and ground themselves. They can receive lots of intuitive psychic downloads. But what can be difficult though is that Virgo isn't necessarily an energy that likes to stand out from the crowd that much. But then Uranus is all about that. So where's the Chiron? Pisces, interesting. So, basically you would be someone who would have to come to terms with your individuality and the little quirks that make you you. Now, with the, you know, difference between having all this in the 12th and the first, well, in the first house, the sun is very strong, right? Um, it makes it a lot easier for one to flash their individualism and to kind of it gives one a very large aura. So in the case of the Uranus being on the sun, it would really it could lead to some jealousy. Um, because people who have first house suns usually are very quite successful and quite good at just having a very larger than life presence. It's good for health. Um, and just in general, it just gives someone like a very entrepreneurial kind of um spirit and purpose, right? So you gotta stop. So it's far from the ascendant, obviously. And where's Mars? But yeah, it's very good for like for self, for self-expression, self-worth, all like the Aries stuff, right? Now it makes great leaders. So in the 12th house, though, if this was in the 12th house, it would create someone very, very spiritual, which, could be the case either way. And one second. Okay, we're back. So so yeah, basically in the 12th, it'd be a lot different. 12th house energies you can think of it as like the house of repressed energies. So, this might resonate more or less, but I'm gonna do my reading a whole sign, but like for this, I'm definitely gonna explain both. But that energy in the 12th would 1000% bring like those intuitive flashes. It would make you a lot less of that kind of out there energy, more private, more a lot of your life purpose like being tied to kind of karma and repaying karma and it because like the thing about using both systems is that like it gets you to the same place either way. That's the very interesting thing. But the 12th you'd be a lot more kind of hidden, and it could be the case that early on, which will show regardless, right, with the sun opposite Saturn, that energies would have, you may have felt like shut down energetically, and in a sense, kind of like there being difficulty with really letting different parts of yourself out, right? That's like the 12th house thing, is like the energies are like weak early on when young, and people, they either become like mega strength or they become repressed energies. So if it's Mercury, the voice, the thought process, all that, which is retrograde already, um or the sun, the identity, it can create someone who prefers to work behind the scenes, and who could go through like lots of like kind of cycles, like which I see in your chart regardless, right? And 12th house people, like it's almost like the cure to everything is to be of service, to have like a life where they're of service. But I don't want to get too far into the placidus stuff, because that's not what I do. Um, so main lesson is that with a 29-degree rising already, you're kind of conquering this Virgo energy. So there will be like karmically. So it's kind of like the final test in some respects with a lot of the Virgo energy. Um, and there's a bit like a big need like to really dive deep into your soul, into your spirit, and go for this like massive transformation, right? So that stellium altogether um is Mercury being your ruling planet, right? Mercury rules Virgo, conjunct Pluto and retrograde is very interesting. Um, because Mercury retrograde people tend to not. There's just a lot of karma associated with that placement, and I'm looking to see if there's any. No. Hmm. Let me just double check my eyes. 12 fixed. The moon would, yeah. So you have moon squares Mercury. Besides that, in conjunction with Uranus and Pluto, basically like you're like 1000% a channel. Like you're able to and just even like in terms of your like ability to just take a lot of information in. Now Virgo is very analytical, right? So there's also this real perfectionist energy that can come up. With any Virgo stellium. And I think so when I go a little bit forward, I'm looking like everything in the chart once. There's some real key aspects here. So Uranus is playing a huge role in your life. Not only is it conjunct your sun, because your sun squares your moon, so that means that the Uranus also squares your moon. I'll get into all that later. I'm just mapping out. And then also moon square Pluto. So those are two extremely important aspects. You cannot miss out on those two. That's for damn sure. I imagine that childhood, growing up, parents, all that wasn't easy. Perhaps there was quarrels between them, or just like a misunderstanding. Misunderstandings, just two very, very different people, I had the same thing at Sun Square Moon. And also I have it in mutable signs. Mine are just Pisces and Sag, the other two mutables. So already with that there's a lot of information there too that needs to be kind of looked at. You would have experienced mom and dad like it's two like very, very different people, right? When a child is developing, like regardless of how much someone wants to say that they're not influenced by, their mom slash dad, you are. And you just have like an exercise you can do is it's like I did this in my book, is to really try to write down like a paragraph or two or however many you want of like what your main lessons, unconscious lessons were from each parent, like how their worldview shaped you basically. And you'd see that they'd be so different, and you might even come to a conclusion like I did, which is like, how the hell did these two people ever like get married? Like, wow. So but with that said, the fact that one is Virgo, the other is Gemini, but then the Virgo has that conjunction with Uranus, which makes it kind of like almost Aquarius. Like it's like it doesn't make it makes you very very airy. So it's not going to be as difficult as if it was as if the Virgo didn't have the Uranus, because Uranus and Gemini, or Aquarius and Gemini, are both air and work really well together. So but yeah, overall, like I always think of the square between sun and moon is like there's like two. I'm just gonna, wow, the lighting's way better. Okay, go here. Yeah, so I always look at that as like there's like two mouths to feed, and there's usually this like inner conflict, right, between your kind of emotional needs, the moon, and then your nature. Another thing with the parents here is a lot of times there's like a disagreement on how each of them wanted you to be raised, you know? And if they were divorced, maybe you went from one to the other, like I did, and had like a completely different like kind of experience, you know, um, with each. So, but with that said, Sun Square Moon people, it does give this real competitive edge, you know? It's like a lot of people who have this, like, you know, are very successful, and it's like kind of like they feel like they take it as motivation, this like energy, this like tense energy between sun and moon. But what can be difficult is that there's this constant kind of push and pull, push and tug between, you know, emotional needs and, you know, how, like your individuality, right? What you need and what you're trying to become. So the key is to really find your own way in life, not following mother or father. But that's just kind of the energy, right? Um, so with that said, um, where do I go from here? Yeah, so just the idea of communication, right? And thinking. When you have Mercury retrograde natally, you and so cool it's conjunct Pluto. You know, usually you're born in 64, so you know you spend the first part of your life really more, especially the Virgo, like more introverted usually, like more. um, I say that, but then you're a Gemini moon, so it's like Gemini moon's opposite of introverted. But I'll get into that in a sec. Um, but definitely like observant, right? Because the whole purpose of a retrograde planet in a chart is that, and the interesting part is that you only have one, which is Mercury, right? Oh no, Saturn too, and yeah. Um, so when there's Mercury retrograde in a chart, and I see that the South Node is in Sag, South Node being, you know, it's on the IC exactly. Um, South Node being kind of and it's conjunct Black and Lilith. South Node being the kind of been there, done that in the chart. What comes easy, but isn't necessarily like there for like, you know, the greatest growth. I need to get this light on. I think it makes my TV makes the lighting a little better. Did I just make it better? Yeah, it does. Um, so I like being in it dark, but not too dark. So yeah, basically the person is meant to kind of like not ruminate, but just like be in their head a little bit about, you know, like you know, how do I want to think? How it's a reevaluation of how one wants to communicate and think, basically, right? That's what Mercury is. And with Pluto being there, it can bring it can make one a very powerful communicator. I was going to make a connection with the nodes, but I'll do that in a sec. Um, and a very, very deep thinker. Someone who is just like when they get interested in in something, they can just go very, very deep with it, you know. A very probing mind. Someone who's not really into like the social chit chat, but then a Gemini moon gives you that versatility to be able to like be super, super deep, and on one part of you like detests small talk and just wants to get to the bottom of things and talk about deep, you know, subjects, whether it's science, spirituality, quantum physics, whatever it is, you know. But the Gemini moon makes you very, very curious about lots of different topics. So yeah, so there's that other balance between like, and that's shown with the moon square Mercury between, you know, meaningful conversations and yeah, kind of social chit chat. Um, But yeah, whenever you're interested in something, you can just go very, very deep into it. Now, Pluto is where we transform. It's where our darkness is, right? So, um, definitely someone who with the South Node in Sag could have come into this life with very defined philosophies, worldviews that come from the past because it's literally on the IC exactly the South Node, which just indicates that once again, you're coming into this life with a bunch of karma, and there's a big link to the ancestral past. And with the Saturn retrograde, I look at that as like this life being somewhat of a karmic do-over in a certain respect, right? And it's in Pisces, so karma, yeah, the karma there is. I think you're born 2 years before my dad, so yeah, you guys both had that. But that's like very heavy karma to have Saturn Pisces, and it's about to re-enter. So you're gonna have your second Saturn return here very, very soon. So I would suggest actually getting what most people do is they I think you got this reading without follow-up, but if you're interested, let me know. You can add a follow-up and current astrology with Saturn return chart reading. So that's where, first hour is the follow-up, or you just do the current astrology if you don't have any questions about the natal, or it's not just questions, it's just like going over everything. And that's like a live one where, we schedule it, it's not like a long wait like this. It's like, in the coming weeks, whenever I have my next available slot. Very interesting. So yeah, this is so much in this chart. I'm just like, I'm looking at everything. I'm like, where? So yeah, South Node in Sagittarius with the whatchamacallit, with the IC right there can be very much very, very much kind of in the past, right? And it can be very, very like the childhood um in most cases was like a major replication of a past life dynamic, right? And with the Mercury retrograde, um, what can happen, what's so interesting, and this is something I experienced firsthand, not having it, but is that unconsciously you can give people in your life almost like almost the characters of people who existed in past incarnations. And like, I'll give you an example. My brother, he has this, right? And when he relates to me, I feel it intuitively that he's relating more to like a past life version of me, of my soul, right? As opposed to Jesse, innocent, right? Who I am today, this life. Um, so that can happen, but really, what the goal with the Mercury retrograde is that, especially with Pluto there, when you have Mercury and Pluto together, it makes the mind really, really deep. It makes the thoughts really, really deep, and um, there can be some very, very dark thoughts as well, right? Um, that can kind of give one that tendency, if we're doing Placidus, if we were doing Placidus, to kind of, hide and want to escape everything, right? Um, but the emergence and the synchronicity of you getting this reading at your current age with a whole sign astrologer, you know, um, these would have progressed past the 12th anyways. And then, energies that are awakened. But yeah, it could have just taken you more time. And with that, the Mercury Pluto, it can really make someone like a voice for their generation, someone who can kind of tap into the zeitgeist very easily of what's happening, not just in their generation, just in general, right? Now, but yeah, there's the whole, and in the karmic, when I look at this karmically, I'm seeing that, like, okay, South Node is in Sag, so it's like a big quest for you in this life to see things from other people's perspectives, because in past life, um, you know, there could have been like somewhat of a kind of scattered energy and almost, yeah, dogmatic energy. Um, so it's really about learning to communicate your ideas in a way that you're able to kind of master. You're really in this life, you're really trying to master the art of communication. Um, and that means, you know, being open to different truths, right? Because with the Black Moon Lilith, which is, think of that as like your, where is this charger? Here it is. As like your kind of like potential darkness, I guess you could say. Like it's like we all have a Black Moon Lilith placement, right? And I think of it as like how we are at our worst. Um, so that also being conjunct with the South Node, it also could very well mean that you were a witch in a past life, or like a mystic, that kind of thing, that you spent a lot of time developing your worldviews. Um, and that's a big theme in this life too, right? Kind of the balance between the lower and the higher mind. Um, for example, hearing people out, even if you think they're stupid, or like, you know, just not being closed-minded, and always being like adaptable when it comes to different ways of viewing reality, right? Um, Now with all that Virgo though, that is a major potential for perfectionism, which I'm sure that you've had to work through, especially with the sun opposite Saturn. Usually that is someone who received quite a lot of criticism from the father. Um, Difficult first 30 years, I'd imagine. Um, Usually it's like a quite strict, imposing father. And yeah, it's really, once again, another challenge to kind of create your own rules and beliefs, and you build your life based on those. So like we're already seeing some big themes here about like the karma that was very heavy at the start, and then after the Saturn return, most likely, um, being very, very in a situation where you're really trying to separate yourself from, not by like running away or escaping, but separate yourself from the thought processes, the kind of traditional way of doing things that your family most likely has whatever. Now, with the moon in Gemini, so you have to remember that all of that Virgo energy can, make that with that opposition to Saturn, can make someone who's very achievement oriented and even if though they're a deep thinker, and even in the first house, it can make someone quite shy, um, and doubt themselves in certain ways, right? Now it also can make someone very, very responsible, someone who is almost like the elder, the observer, right? The rising in Virgo is a person who sees everything. They're able to observe every little thing. Um, so with that Uranus energy on the sun, it can make like an inventor. Like it could make someone who's like extremely inventive and who has like the Virgo structure, day to day, step by step to make things work, right? But doesn't necessarily have, or yeah, has that, but then also has that ability to think outside the box and be different, right? So that's a really beautiful um, placement. Now with the moon, right? So the moon squaring Mercury, that will make someone quite indecisive. Um, Always weighing the pros and cons, and it's because there's the thoughts and the feelings, moon feelings, thoughts, Mercury, which are at odds. Um, so it's about really learning how to compromise between those two. And like really feeding the mouth of Virgo and feeding the mouth of Gemini. So what's the mouth of Gemini? Well, interestingly, your north node, which is like the mountain you're trying to get to, like the metaphoric mountain never climbed in past life, like where you're kind of the destiny points, like where I base a lot of my readings on, is exactly on your midheaven in Gemini, and your moon's there too. So you have a supportive energy to um your node, maybe the most supportive energy possible to getting to that place. Big time energy of someone who kind of preferred to stay, like past life tendency to kind of stay close to home, even though it's in Sag. So it could be someone who, you know, let's just say like very, very philosophical, very, very um even traveled perhaps, but like close to home in the sense of like not allowing themselves to expand into career, dharma, like outer life, right? So when you have North Node conjunct midheaven, it's a very sure sign that you're very fated to do something that touches humanity and to take a lot of these skills that you've come across in past lives that you've developed, and to create something out of them. That's also shown by your Mars and Venus in the 11th. So what this is all, the foundation for all this is your core beliefs, right? So I'm already getting the image of those being very shaped early on, perhaps by you're from Michigan. Yeah, I was just checking to see if you're from like a very traditional like European country where it might, like my French side, for example, where we go back like so far, like it's like a million generations. But yeah, overall, there's just something there about the lineage and about you really having to break through a lot of shit, right? A lot of conditioning, a lot of self-limiting beliefs of that were thrown upon you, because being a Uranian, you know no matter what, you're someone who stands out, as I said, right? whether it's 12th or 1st, Uranus Sun. But Uranus. But the square with the moon um in Uranus is very difficult because it creates kind of like it can make someone almost like so stubborn in their efforts to kind of stand out from the crowd, right? Um, so and it can create someone who is just like so I think squares as outers of the moon, sometimes they have to like detach a lot from, more with Neptune and Pluto, but definitely also with Uranus, like the mother could have been experienced as like somewhat like erratic and kind of all over the place. So, and the father is quite strict, perhaps. So there's a need to detach from that also, right? Um, and to find balance between the two. So the first step, right? Because I give solutions now, just like say all this stuff is obviously getting past perfectionism and really finding that inner self critic. Um, that can take many different forms, right? How you do that. Um, and just being able to kind of have those conversations with your soul, with your higher self, and it's really like a kind of like a karmic impetus to know yourself better, right? Because you'll be very, very observant of all of your failures and all of the ways that you fall short. So it's really about developing that self-love. Um, mhm. Yeah. So just in general though, Virgo and Gemini, um, Virgo likes things planned. Virgo likes things set. Virgo likes things to kind of be the way they are, right? They like consistency. Gemini is the opposite, like just completely different. It likes mutability. They're both mutable, but it's extremely like first it wants one thing, then it wants the next, right? And you have midheaven there, so that same energy could like midheaven Gemini people, a lot of times they are people who like switch careers multiple times. They have like lots of different versions of themselves as like public figures. It doesn't just have to be career, you um and the key, so having a Gemini moon with a Virgo sun is, you know having that that stability down, and also knowing that you have an emotional need for mental stimulation, and for and that it can be, if you were all Virgo, it wouldn't be like this, but that there can be a tendency to get bored quite easily. And also I think of Virgo as being, like more introverted in a sense, while Gemini is not introverted. So there could be like a part of you that is, like I said, all about stability and refining yourself towards the highest perfection, perfect version that you can possibly be. But then the Gemini moon part can just be like very easily bored. So finding that career, that passion that, gives that, because like Gemini moons, they need to be stimulated, right? Um, I can think of so many examples of people I know through astrology or just in life who have this, and they, one year they're doing this, next year they're doing that, and it's always the seeking, the seeking, the seeking. Um, but yeah, as I was kind of like starting to say earlier, like there's like a big need to like learn to like really listen, and that's why you have Mercury retrograde, because in past lives you didn't do that very well. Um, and when you have Mercury retrograde, thought process kind of gets inverted a little bit, and also can make it quite difficult. You do have it in Virgo, so that's very good for is it on you just outside the combust zone, so that's good. But still, that's a big karmic. It's not just learning to listen. It's just really the development, the balancing of the higher and the lower mind. Um, so like the higher Sagittarius and the Gemini, which like it's about like really mastering both. So mastering Gemini is like that's like where you go, like the journalist, like that's where you go out and get all the information, right? Um, where you have those like little mini conversations with people. Sag is where you tie it all together. Um, but when you haven't done enough of that journalist work and you kind of come in thinking like this is right, that's right. I mean, like for example, like this could be the chart of someone who had like a very religious family and kind of followed suit with that. But then because they had this Uranus energy, they they were the ones who were meant to be different, were meant to kind of question a lot. And because of that, maybe they were shamed for it. Um, and if the family structure that was in a certain way, it could have made it so you're only feeding that Virgo side, right? Um, which would be just like kind of playing it by the book, but then at some point playing it by the book gets very boring, right? And then it's like a complete swing to the Gemini side of just like you know, just going kind of a little bit rogue and trying tons of different things, whatever it is. Um, 10th house, so it would be, careers or just, things that contribute to your dharma. Um, but then you have this gift of the 9th house Jupiter, right? So that is and in Taurus too. So one thing to watch out for with Jupiter in Taurus is overindulgence, but it does make one very persistent on their search for truth, right? Um, Also, it's really good for money and just like attracting abundance. But yeah, I mean, Jupiter in ninth house gives someone this real amazing perspective on the three big questions, um, where do we come from? Who are we? Where are we going? You know, it's it's like very, very philosophical, and the Mercury retrograde would have you have like having lots of like conversations with yourself. So yeah, just endless quests of knowledge through philosophy, what travel, just anything that expands your knowledge is like, you know, is knowledge and wisdom is and you have lots of luck also with traveling, and with finding the right teachers. Um, Luck, I don't believe in luck. Just good karma with that, right? So yeah. Um, but yeah, there's definitely, like I said, the need to hear people out and to not push your opinion on other people too much, right? And to not like stay too close to where it's safe. to get out in the world and risk that. Risk what might not feel so comfortable. Because the South Node fourth house in Sag could be a person that prefers to stay at home, learn a lot, but not really go out there and show all their versatility. So thank God that the moon is in Gemini, because that's completely tied to that emotional need in the 10th house, for that mental stimulation, right? And that deep curiosity, that cat-like curiosity, that it makes someone a chatterbox. Like the Virgo part is like not like that, but the Gemini moon, I always say Gemini moon people or air moons in general, like they're not usually that emotional, in the sense that if the same thing happens to like a Cancer moon or a Gemini moon, it might take like 10 months for Gemini moon to process it. The Cancer moon cries about it right away, But yeah, just like Gemini moon people are very talented, very intelligent, and yeah, they just need lots of stimulation and activity. They can have like lots of anxiety disorders. People with Gemini moons can get those a lot. Just yeah, but like a huge need to be stimulated. So that goes to your romantic partners too, is they have to really meet you in that place of you know, they have to meet you intellectually, or it's just not going to be good. Now, let's see. Then there's a T square here. No, there's not. Yeah, there is. Hold up. No. So Moon, of course, also is square Pluto. So that I always say is the hardest aspect in astrology. That or Moon square Pluto or Moon opposite Pluto. Now, Moon square Pluto, I see with so many of my clients, and I always think of it as like these are people who were meant for this spiritual life because they had a mother that was usually overly interfering, an upbringing that usually their emotional needs were not met. Um, lots of in like lots of emotional intensity. So there can be like some trauma there, emotional trauma there. Um, and it's basically like lots of noise, lots of noise and emotions that can like swing from one end to the other like very, very fast, right? So it takes a lot of mastering, and that's why a lot of people that's why I have so many clients who have this aspect, right? Because they've that's the kind of energy that sends one to start healing. But yeah, it can be very compulsive behavior patterns, very dark emotions, can be like self-destructive, and yeah, it's like a very like the root of all of it is very like deeply buried, right? So very linked to childhood, and it can come out in romantic relationships until the true source is found, right? So it can make like yeah, it can make it can make it so like the emotional reactions come like very intensely, very very quickly from a very like hidden place. Um and make yeah, self-control is so hard for people who have this early on in life, especially, right? So what a common pattern is that until they really look at like, people who have this aspect, like where it's coming from, they can project it onto their partners. But usually it's related to like the early like relationships with parents and family, home, all that stuff. Now the mother with the Pluto square moon is usually very interfering, very domineering. And there's all like definitely, so this kind of this ancestral, there's ancestral reasons for this inner turmoil. It's like passed on from generation to generation, which I keep getting this sense with your chart. I'm kind of building myself into your chart. It's a very very complex chart. But it's really through close relationships that the emotional crises occur, but also through going back into the past that they can be healed, right? um some people also have this, like, because the moon represents the public, especially in the 10th house, they can have like some of their most private parts of them exposed, which is can be very traumatic in itself. And yeah, like when they form relationships, it can be like really really intense and really really fast. Now, like I always say, every hard aspect is meant to be worked through. So Moon Pluto, it gives like this, like once it's worked through, because like I said, it can be very manipulative, because there can be this, like there can you can even link it to abandonment and a fear of abandonment, that when it comes out in relationships, that they can try to really control. So when you have this aspect, you have to really just like feel the feelings, if there's like jealousy, all that stuff. Like feel that, because like the person usually feels quite misunderstood also. Um, but to really, it's all about like just letting go, right? Which can be difficult for Virgo in itself, to just let go and surrender, because Virgo wants to be in control of everything. So yeah, but through the work, a lot of times it's therapy, whatever kind of healing it is, that's more and more self-awareness is reached, to the point that like you start lower, but then it's like the person, I always used to get this metaphor, I haven't in a while. It's like if you're there's a sports team, there's one guy who's naturally buff, but he's lazy because he's just like, oh, I'm good. And there's the person who isn't naturally like that, but works their ass off, and then before they know it, they have that crazy like amazing work ethic, and then they're way above the other person, and they have all that grit. But it definitely takes you into the underworld. So you are no stranger to that very scorpionic kind of energy to you. Um, but yeah, once you kind of see like, okay, this is the origin of this. Um, that's like the awareness is the first step, and then um then like it just makes one able to like just be this amazing psychologist in any area of life, right? This amazing healer, um where they can like kind of almost like sometimes not be triggered by anything. They can just kind of like because they've seen it all. um so yeah, like the life experience gained during the real darker times is really assisting the transformation. So yeah, but also this is another like uh like aspect for perfectionism too, right? Because that compulsive nature can really be turned into perfectionism, right? Like when you start to really grow, right? And start to like master different areas of your life. So it's really important to understand that that can be a different form of perfectionism. Um, but really self-control can lead to just great emotional power and great like extreme leaps in terms of karmic like emotional transformation. But yeah, there is a need to kind of just give in and just understand, like, whatever I'm. So like when I have clients who have these types of aspects, like I always tell them, like, whatever happened, like, don't have shame, don't hold shame um for that, right? Because it was meant to happen. So yeah, moon squaring those two, Uranus and Pluto, is very interesting. Very, very interesting. Um, and maybe you're someone who, like, yeah, like there's like one part that, like, really, like, very rebellious, very rebellious, but also perfectionist. It's an interesting combo. I hope we have a follow-up to discuss this all, because this is like, very, there's a lot here. Um, the moon also squares Vesta, um, which is, where is it? It's probably on the other side, in Pisces. Um, hmm. Well, Vesta in the seventh in Pisces. That's the asteroid, one of the four major asteroids. Um, I would say that in the seventh house there, it makes one very devoted to spiritual relationships. And just to, like someone who works really hard, who has a lot focuses a lot on intimate relationships, and really, like, is very dedicated to working on themselves when it comes to their role in those close relationships, right? um and Pisces, it's because Vesta is very related to, like, your work, right? So it's like when you're doing something to service humanity in a good way, that's when you're at your best, making the world a better place, blah blah blah. And it's also like very Uranus conjunct Sun. But with the square, being in the seventh house, I would think that it would have to do with, like, part of you who feels this need to do to do that exact thing of just, like, um focusing a lot on work, which your karma is asking you for. But then another part that is very relationship oriented. Now there's lots of lessons in love here too, because Saturn is also square the moon. Um, it's not showing up in my aspect grid, but it is square the moon. So that creates a T-square between Saturn, moon, and sun, with the resolution point being Sagittarius, fourth house. So it is actually through that creation of the ideals and the worldview. Like, it's like you work very hard to create this worldview, right? By doing the quote unquote metaphor journalist work. And then that, which becomes your truth, right, is what guides you. And it's what guides you towards getting past mom and dad's kind of, like, I would imagine it being very strict energy, because, and then what's in the seventh house, Saturn, it has an effect on the relationships. And a lot of times it makes it so the person doesn't have any of their real important love relationships until after the Saturn return. If they do, oftentimes they have lots of troubles around the Saturn return and time leading up to it, as Saturn, transits into the seventh, right? That's advised for people who have seventh house Saturns to, get married after the Saturn return. But the fact that the moon is the apex of T square is that the emotional nature of moon square Saturn, it can really make that Gemini moon that's so dynamic and all that, very hidden. It can really hide that fun flowy part, and there can be lots of incredible amount of conditioning that has to get overcome. And Chiron also squares the moon. So on top of the conditioning and the strictness from both sides, right? And like I just can't imagine your parents being anything other than like just very, very traditional and hard on you. So with all that Virgo, which is already hard on itself, and then the Mercury retrograde internalizing it all, um, I would imagine it would have taken you a long time to really break out of that shell. And that maybe you could spend a lot of time and effort like trying to do things the right way until you realize like shit, this isn't what I want, you know? But like this is the ultimate chart of like, or not the ultimate, like this is just a chart that is so like it is so like it could go so many different directions, and it's so hinged on the inner work, right? Because if there's no inner work done, someone with this type of chart could just very easily just stay stuck in that perfectionism kind of anxiety, but then that anxiety of like, wanting to be innately kind of feeling like they want things to be different. I'll be right back. I have to close this door. I just remembered, or this window. That's why I feel cold. But yeah, there can definitely be this like anxiety of like, okay, I'm doing all the right things, but it's not bringing me like this happiness that I imagined, right? So yeah, to overcome that, it definitely takes that kind of like analysis. A lot of time I'd imagine that it was when you started therapy or when you started really healing yourself, and that and maybe it was with the moon squaring Pluto, maybe because there's so many hard aspects to the moon. It's like holy shit. Um, like square Sun, square Mercury, square Uranus, square Saturn, square Pluto, square Chiron. It's literally squaring so much that it may have actually been the case that it was so obvious that there's so many emotional issues, and you're tackling these for your entire bloodline. That's what's like what I'm feeling, what I'm seeing, right? South Node on the IC. So you're carrying the weight of like generations and generations, and it's on you to do this work. And Moon square Saturn can be very, very it can just be really, really difficult because it can cause depression, right? It can cause lots of melancholy, lots of um like that fun Gemini side of you feeling like held back and repressed, repressed emotion, right? So even if you don't look at the, once again, the magic of astrology, even if you don't look at the 12th as the sun, all that is the 12th house, well, there's still that same repression that can come, right? With Chiron, now we're talking about something different, right? We're talking about I don't know why it doesn't show me the aspect of the centers. But here we're talking about emotional pain, but that the emotional pain can also be the keys to you gaining deeper understanding and finding these real hidden spiritual tools, right? Or skills, right? Because it's in Pisces. So that is all about like the difficulty, this in suffering that comes from trying to find your own sense of individuality, right? It's like it can definitely create kind of a time in your life, or times in your life where there's just this this just hectic, like what's the term, crisis, right? This like crisis of like, who am I, identity crisis. So And in the seventh house, lots of pain coming from relationships, broken, painful relationships, right? And feeling like rejected by the partner. But then in time, having a partner who teaches you to really overcome that, or you being the one who teaches your partner, or being someone who's like a psychologist, who's literally a healer, a spiritual healer for other people. That's what I could definitely imagine as well with Chiron the seventh. And yeah, like really being able to like have this ability to feel other people's pain, which your Mars and Venus and Cancer shows too. Um, and a great mediator, but yeah, lots of grief and shame usually is the case here. And you know, people who have this can really heal through their intuition. They can be like spiritual, like healers who whatever they're doing, they're able to really heal through their actual intuition. So lots of moon stuff. So I would like guess that you had to overcome, maybe still have to, just it's like a constant battle of having to overcome it. But because there's so many of these aspects, like some people, like I always get it like this. It's like some people like they stay like in this kind of like middle ground, like they have these underlying issues that might be fucked up, right? And there's some people, but because they don't like um explode per se, they never deal with them. But when you have all of these aspects, it could just been like, ooh, like so obvious to you that you were pushed to do the work early, even earlier, that led you to really so much healing. That's what I sense. I sense that it was done for the sake of you being like kind of the chosen one in a sense. So the high energy of Virgo is understanding that you know the strive for perfection is impossible, and that you can still do your best. And I always give this kind of example. It's like a client with a similar chart a while ago, talking about meditation, and I was like, let me guess. Like, I'm not gonna give the whole story, but I was like, let me guess. You gave meditation a try, and you maybe did like 10, 11 days where you're adding like, I don't know, 2 to 3 minutes each time, doing good, probably writing it down like a Virgo, and then all of a sudden you just, you know, all of a sudden that one day came and you just kind of let something happen. Maybe you had to do something, or you just weren't feeling it. And then day 13, that is the big one. Metaphorically, right? You feel what I'm saying? Like metaphorically, can you get back on the horse after a perceived failure? Because Virgo people tend to judge themselves to such high standards, and when in reality they're here and other people are here, just as a metaphor, not like an actual hierarchy. But they see themselves as here and other people here, right? So it's really like about seeing the self clearly. Now, one way you can see yourself clearly is through when you're giving, when you're really giving selflessly and sacrificing yourself for the greater good. You learn a lot about yourself, you learn a lot about the world. And also when you're creating, when you're letting yourself go creatively, like with your Neptune in the third house, you're able to really to create through your intuition, also be a very magical communicator, a powerful and magical communicator, right? Because it sextiles, doesn't it? Mercury, right? Yeah, it does. It doesn't show me. This aspect grid thing is so weird. It should show right here. How is that not 12 to 15? That's so crazy. Wow. Um, but yeah, so like Mercury sextiling Neptune is giving you this amazing creativity and ability to have to like if you're a poet, for example, like it could be great for poetry, for just creative writing and having like an outlet like that. And you also have Pallas in that same house, in third house conjunct Juno. So you have these two sacred asteroids together. Um, so Pallas in the third makes someone very, very intelligent in a very intuitive way. Um, and just it adds in Scorpio, like, even more of that kind of deep probing mind that wants to get to the bottom of things. The detective energy, psychologist energy, like I said, right? Now you put them together. Um, well, I should talk about Juno. So Juno, when we talk about love, and Juno is like your ideal partner, right? So in Scorpio, third house, someone that you can, like I said, with your Gemini moon, you need to have that intellectual connection, right? And be able to talk to about a lot of things. But then in Scorpio, there needs to be that emotional intensity. They need to, like, for example, like your moon square Pluto, they can't be like someone who's just like intimidated by that. We both have the same Juno, by the way. So I can speak from that like there needs to be like a level of like you like need to be able to say whatever you want to say. You know what I mean? I've had this for so long. It's like a magnesium biotin, vitamin B6. Tastes so good. Yum yum yum. That's done. So yeah, but then having Pallas connected with Juno, I think that maybe a partner in crime, like not in crime, but like in solving crime, like someone who's really interested in going deep, and kind of combining two minds, right? Maybe doing like when I say detective work, you know what I mean by that. Like it could just be like learning about the same thing and like that kind of thing together. But yeah, really wanting someone that's consistent, that's loyal, that's like your rock that you can depend on, but who's also fun. You can't ignore the moon. The moon needs fun, and with all that Virgo, it's someone who can help pull you towards your North Node, which is a lot about letting go of the need to be anything. If I want to put it anywhere, anything in terms of like you're meant to be different. Like, you are not meant to be just like everyone else. Like you are meant to be different. Sun conjunct Uranus, like Moon square Uranus. So like um it's definitely a leader and a rebel, right? Super original, but like others can sometimes see that person is a little bit arrogant, because they have such a strong will that can be a little bit disruptive to tradition. Um, so yeah. Um, oh shit. And your moon is conjunct the royal star Aldebaran. So I'll talk about that a little bit. That's really, really good. Um, so Ceres in Sag, you are someone who feels nurtured. So your moon is wow, we have like opposite Ceres, and Ceres is kind of like a second moon. It's like kind of like what you need to feel nurture and how you nurture others. So it's similar. It's like information, like learning, wisdom. You love to teach people things, but like the key to having that conjunct Black and Lilith is like to not like throw your truth. Like I used to do that a lot, right? When I was first getting into astrology, is like I've learned this amazing thing that's so empowering that I want everyone close to me to also feel that. But then I learned a lesson of like, everyone has their own journey to get there. So yeah. So yeah, making sure once again, I'll repeat it over and over. that you're coming from a, it's I see this like this image of like you having to come from the underground, like like start not, you may have come from money. I mean, I'm not saying that in a financial way. I mean, with that placement there of Aldebaran moon, it could have been that, may not have been the issue. Um, but um, you know, it's like really carrying like a heavy karmic load. Um, so yeah, it's important for you to have spiritual protection. So for you to do things that involve that. So perhaps like intoxicants might not be the best thing for you, at least in excess. Um, and people can be jealous if you do have a family that's like, people can be jealous of your family with fourth moon Lilith, right? They can be jealous of your family. So, yeah. So then, yeah, I mean, we go up and we see like how impactful relationships are to you, and how another aspect of your whole relationship energy is that you really want healing relationships. You want relationships that are helping you like get rid of that perfectionism, um, and that, but you also have to really watch out for that kind of like seeking that perfection within them, because no one's perfect. No one's going to tick every box. But vertex conjunct descendant means that your doorway to higher awareness is through these important relationships, and that you're going to meet, which is very, very interesting that I am your astrologer and your vertex is conjunct my sun and Mercury. That's crazy. Because the vertex is about fate, and um, during times of scrutiny or just difficult times in general, you'll come across people with these placements that might help you. So I hope I'm helping you. I'm really, doing everything I can to piece this difficult chart together. Not difficult in bad, just difficult because it's like so much that's just like all over. Like, yeah, there's just so much going on. So besides that, I haven't even talked about your sun conjunct Pluto. It's not as close as Uranus, but that, is a very powerful person, right? So very intense person, more Scorpio kind of vibe to you, right? Um, and it actually makes it easier for you to rid yourself of the unwanted things in your life. Um, and it makes, transformation, makes you a very powerful person, a very powerful person. It could be even politics, or something like a high position of power. So that another thing with that is that you have to watch out for like, what is your definition of power? I have a lot of people with this that they have to learn that power is not external, it's internal. And when you find that in what can happen with people who have this is that they can start their life trying to control others and finding power in that way until they reach that evolutionary point where they're just like, all right, I realize what I've done is not the right way to do things. And yeah, I can just really, really like transformation just being like a huge factor in your life. Like you're here, super karmic chart. So regardless of 12th or first, like we get the point. And either way, you're a leader. And 29-degree like ascendant is just like, once again, like, lots of trials and tribulations for you to really find that true identity. Now, when we talk about the Mars conjunct Venus, in Cancer, that makes a nice energy. It's usually high libido, very charming, but also assertive. Um, and you know, someone who can, I have this too, right? So oh, mine's an Aquarius, though, it's way different. But like basically like the Venus makes the Mars a little bit less intense, and the Mars makes the Venus a little bit less passive. So, yeah, and it's definitely like very profound, like in terms of relationships, 'cause it does make someone very relationship oriented. Um, Strong desire for love and affection. Um, and yeah, just like a huge like need for for those relationships, right? So it can lead to codependency sometimes, or just so there's a big need to like you know be cool with being alone, because like it's another one of those these positions where like the level of intensity can be too much for like the partner to cope with it. Then it's also like a mega powerful one, right? A lot of people who have this have like many marriages, even affairs, but like coming out, like off like a divorce, something like that, or a breakup, it's very easy to find a new partner because it gives us very magnetic attractiveness, right? People who like flirting, they just like the idea of courtship. That's kind of what I've noticed. Like even me being in a relationship, like I don't pursue it, but like I just the idea of courtship is just like fun. It's good for popularity too in social settings. And that's in the 11th house, so it's very interesting how this would play out. But good for career. Being able to like be financially well off. With Venus there and Mars there, kind of pushing towards that. And yeah, just like intense goal-directed energy. So you have a lot of that in your chart, right? Like a super strong work ethic. So a lot of times with this one, it's like how, so in your case, your father, how you relate to the opposite sex depends greatly on um your early relationship with your father. So that's kind of more to what I've been saying throughout this. But yeah, in the 11th house, Mars in Cancer alone, it's like someone who really wants to fight for the people who have less of a voice. Um, there can be passive aggressive energy when they're hurt, um, where they can kind of retreat into their shell, and it's you're a dreamer for sure. I mean, you have the most creative placement in all astrology, Venus trine Neptune, and Mars also trine Neptune. So like the whole thing I was talking about, like with creative writing, whatever it is for you, like you have this integration of imagination and like the ability, like the painter, like Van Gogh, the painter part, the actual ability to do is the Venus, and then the Neptune is that inspiration to have those beautiful paint ideas for paintings, inspiration. Um, And then 11th house Mars people that they definitely like they just want to fight for what they believe in, and they're very goal oriented. They want there can sometimes be like quarrels with friends. They want to be like leaders, and sometimes they can be a little bit over imposing with their friends. But with Venus, it makes it all chill, and it makes you attract many friends. Really good with socializing, and it pushes like I said, it appeases that energy, and it's in Cancer. So within your friend groups, you might be someone, especially with what I said with the family, where with your part of fortune being there too, where the groups you're part of or your friendships, um, those are your family. You feel like almost those are like where like your soul fam is your real family kind of, right? Um, so yeah. But with that energy already, like it's the difficult part is that um it will make you very, very like loving of your family, which is really good, right? So like if you have kids and stuff, like you'll be amazing mother and all that, and very, very driven towards wanting to create a family for yourself. But early on, it could have made it difficult to have boundaries. Like let's say like the family was very bad to you, maybe or like there's just lots of difficult energy and karma there. Um, it could make it so that you still kept coming back and didn't create the correct boundaries. So, yeah, but like, Venus in Cancer, emotional and financial security is very important. And in terms of love, with these two, really wanting that real emotional and also physical closeness, like Cancer is very, and like kind of homebody energy, um, which, yeah, is definitely showing that. So, um, so your Jupiter is conjunct Algol. I already see that. Um, and then you have Aldebaran, which is, I would say, the best stars are Regulus, Aldebaran, and probably Spica, Fomalhaut also, Antares. So let's see how far it is. I have to stare at my computer. So it is, wow. So you could, I don't know anything about you, by the way. I haven't looked at one photo. I do this for every client. I wish you could see what I was looking at. I'm looking at a million numbers jumbled together. It looks like it's within 0.07. And then with algol, this is in 0.04. So Jupiter with algol is going to be, algol is like one of the most difficult stars, but having Jupiter there is going to help it out. I'll get into this in a second. I'm just trying to get everything in my head of what you have. So you have Urania on the midheaven. So if you're an astrologer, I would not be surprised at all. You might be meant to be an astrologer. And with and I offer one-on-one courses in astrology, by the way, if you're ever interested. So that's one thing. Also, one thing going back a little bit that I forgot to mention is that you have no fire in your chart. I usually mention that earlier. I didn't say that. I kept seeing it, but then not saying anything. So people who lack fire in their chart, they sometimes find it difficult to find that fiery passion to just like jumpstart things. But if we're looking at this from the first house, all that Virgo, it's going to make that a lot easier. But still, like, you really have to kind of like push yourself to be there. But because your South Node's in fire, I think that's an energy that you've mastered in past lives. Because I've tested this with many clients, and they've usually said like, that they don't have issues with self-starting, with finding passions, and with just like having the idea and just going, So it could just be that you, with your South Node being in Sag, fire sign, that you mastered that energy, that element, and that there's no need for you to have that, and there's more of a need for you to focus on, the elements that are present, Earth, which is about grounding yourself and finding that, and really finding that kind of like day-to-day balance routine, and health being very important to you. Air, which of course we've talked a lot about communication and and um and and the mind. It's really about, like, this chart is so heavily predicated on the integration of the mind, so speaking of that, so Zosma, of course, is conjunct your Mercury, as I would have expected. So that is one of these truth seeker placements, right? So, you are, once again, an investigator, 1000%. Pluto, that just creates just a poet, but also very, very erotic placement. But I don't like to talk about that stuff. But, with the Jupiter in Taurus, there could be potential for like an insatiable amount of, if, watching out for like going over the top with the self-indulgence, perhaps. Um, White Moon Selena conjunct Neptune, like that's just like ultimate spiritual protection. So that's really good, because I said you needed that. Looking. And yeah, your doorway to higher awareness is really through the high spirituality, right? And I think another aspect, like I said, of your relationships is really, really wanting that in relationships, and like your relationships are super karmic. So it's like everyone is very, very fated. And do I see anything else? And yeah, you're at your best, like you're in your flow state when you're helping humanity and you're kind of like, have found your real goal, your real purpose, but then also when you're nourishing yourself and when you're, with your family and able to like really be at peace at home and all that stuff, right? Hey, Esme, speaking of a Cancer, here comes the Cancer. Who loves her home, don't you? Mm, yes. She's so sneaky. She's a little small cat, forever small. Because I adopted her at 6 months, but I thought she was like literally 2 months old because she was still malnourished and she survived. She's so strong. She survived a whole frozen. Right now it's -8. I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit. Probably like 10. She survived an entire Romanian winter. She's the only one of her litter who did it. And then she's at my girlfriend's house in the country, or like not house. It's just like a bunch of houses together. Of her, all her family kind of lives in like the same kind of complex, like a very traditional thing. Um, and yeah, Esme was just one of the cats, and now she's a spoiled little baby who's a food addict, and she just comes up and sneaks on my lap. I don't even notice she's there sometimes. And then I look down and suddenly I've been petting her for 30 minutes and she's purring and I didn't even like I barely like noticed that she did it. So she's yeah, as you can see. She always wins my contest on my stories for Team Esme. So let's use this one close enough. Maybe. Okay, so now let's open this up. So you have a lot of really important stars. Um, so isn't it? So the one that's furthest away, Omaha is like maybe not count it. Yeah, you gotta give them a bigger orb. It's a real star. So it's with Saturn. So you have to watch out for like elements affecting the lungs, just accidents in general. Also the throat and the feet. Um, and also lost through like friends and enemies and being like wrongfully accused. Um, so yeah, you gotta be very, very honest. Um, very, very honest because you can like become wrongfully accused of things and there can be yeah, not having affairs, for example. Um, okay. But it's not as strong of influence as your Aldebaran, which is right on your moon. That's one of the luckiest stars in the heavens. Um, so moon in Aldebaran is so favorable for business, also for honor and receiving credit for what you do, especially if it's in the 10th house, which it is. Um, so that's really good. A lot of people who have Aldebaran are born into rich families, but it's not always the case. Um, it's great for domestic and public and spiritual matters also. Uh, Yeah. What else can I say about Aldebaran? Just super lucky, you know. Um, it definitely can bring a weakness for the opposite sex also. Um, like lots of libido, as I said, like lust, if not reined in, it can bring kind of like downfall, so you have to watch out for that. A lot of times people with this can have their mother lost their mother early on or suddenly. Um, and then the person like kind of has this like subjective like this just real craving for that mothering they missed out on as a child. Um, which is often why like one spouse is usually never enough. So yeah, definitely a big need for physical love and affection, just like the Mars and Venus and Cancer. I have no idea how long I've been going, by the way. Like I've stopped time. I accidentally stopped timing. So okay, so now algol with Jupiter. So this is gonna be an interesting one because usually algol is difficult, but this is the best placement possible of algol, and it actually gives amazing creative talent for art and music, especially. And people who have this can actually make a living from it. Like Picasso had it, for example. So that is an excellent placement. And what do you think, Esme? Algol Jupiter is pretty good, right? Yeah, also just like great um ability to understand like deep spiritual um kind of stop, Esme. Stop. No scratch. Aries Mars. Yeah, it can bring a lot of real ability to like understand things that are very complicated for other people. So I think that's about it, unless I missed something. But wow, Aldebaran Moon. Look at you. Um, and then yeah, Urania. Wait, hold up. There's another star. Oh, and Betelgeuse. Yeah, it's called Betelgeuse. It's on the midheaven. Also, it was just like I have so many stars smushed together that I can barely see. Yeah. So Betelgeuse is a wealth star. Um, it's a wealth star. So it's gonna be very good for that. And where was I? Where'd my page go? So I just want to check one thing real quick. Yeah, so it's just very good for inventions also, ingenuity and career. So really good for the arts and sciences. And yeah, just very good for great fortune and honor. And also, it's very good for being a superior athlete, like really good agility, speed of the body. So yeah, and also it can once again like give lots of variable moods and a mind always anxious with the immediate problems of the day. So I want to end by talking about that. But also preferment, luck, success, and everlasting fame is our promise. So that's like a really, really good one to have on your midheaven. And looking at the list of people, it's like Dave Chappelle, Bruce Willis, Hugh Hefner, Rudy Giuliani, uh, Walter Coach, um, just Silvio Berlusconi, super famous, Navalny, so just yeah. Um, but yeah, um, hold on. So with that third thing I was talking about, right? Variable moods and a mind always anxious, which is very Gemini Moony, with the immediate problems of the day. So that actually encap like that kind of encap I can always encapsulates enca encapsulates like this Virgo Gemini energy, right? Because like Virgo can get so preoccupied with like every day there's a reason you can be anxious about something, you know? But like when you look at your opposite sign Pisces, you just connect deeper with God, and that's through service also that happens, right? And through and with that oneness. And it's like the key to all this, right, is to be able to like understand that those are things that are just part of life, but to not allow them to get in the way of your kind of God, like so for example, like I had all that stuff I told you early in the reading about that happened today. Like I still have like I allow them to happen, but I still like it's not like every time something happens like that, like I look into myself and I say, okay, what fear is this bringing up, right? So for example, like I've had lots of problems in my apartment, and I love my apartment, but like it's like almost like it's cursed. And um I'm thinking like I don't want my landlord to just like get fed up and just be like, I'm selling it to someone, or I want someone different. I don't know. Or like like whatever. I'm gonna prefer to rent it to someone else, even though like all these things are like not my fault. And I did tell him this one was my fault, and I did tell him, I'm gonna pay for it. Like it's probably because I somehow left this thing open and the frozen weather broke the pipe. But yeah, overall, I looked at that and I saw that that was the fear that was holding it back. And I said, okay, now let me look at that fear, feel into it, and allow. And this goes with the surrender thing, like allow myself to feel into what it would be like to lose the apartment, you know, and like really, really feel that potential, which isn't even it's not happening. There's 0% chance of losing it. Um, well, never say zero, but like it's not happening, especially in this economy. Um, but like by doing that, I enable myself to accept it, right? To just accept, okay, if you lose it, you're still alive, you're still blessed, and that's just the way it is. And doing that with every single thing in life, like old psychologist of mine, or not, he wasn't even mine, I was just going to his meditation class, and he told a story about how he had like a woman who was really afraid of flying, and he had that woman imagine herself in the worst case scenario dying in that plane crash, and to really like feel it. It's very intense, but it actually relieved her fear of flying because she had somehow in her mind um, felt that, felt that potential. So just want to kind of put that in there. One aspect I didn't talk about is Jupiter trine ascendant, which is a beautiful one. It gives lots of luck and lots of joyousness to the external, to that Virgo that can sometimes be a little bit like, not always so And also, new midheaven is trined by Saturn. That's very, very good for success. And I mean, I have the sextile, and it really, really helps with success. So like, I'd be a little bit shocked if you struggled in that way, but you never know. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed. I gave this my all. At the start, I was like, man, this is a different type of chart than I've seen in a long time. But I feel happy, and I hope to speak to you. Hopefully, we can set up a follow up in the current astrology, or whatever suits you. There's never any pressure with me. And we can talk live on Zoom. So just a little bit about that, a little bit more about that. If you do decide to go with both, I would charge you, instead of closer to 500, I would charge you 350. It would be a 3-hour session. The first hour we would go over everything just natal, and then the next two plus. Sometimes it goes over, but I try. Usually I try to keep it 3. But I mean, I don't really try anything. Like usually it's around 3, but it can go over. It's never really under 3. I think like I've had it, the lowest I've had is exactly 3 hours. And in those 2 hours, not only are we going to be talking about all your transits, your progressions, your solar return, all the current astrology, the year ahead, so for you to be really prepared. And I advise all my clients to do that once a year with me. Some do, some don't. And I never really set reminders because I'm just like, if someone wants to come back, they'll come back. You know, it is a great experience, and I have 2 masters in psychology, and even though they're current astrology readings, they always end up being way deeper, like every single time. So, yeah, I'll leave you there. Thank you so much, and I'll talk to you later. Ciao.